Hey everybody, Ryan Molly here, and I am really excited about this week's guest. I've known this guest for well over 20 years. She helped to shape me professionally, personally, helped to teach me a lot about the musculoskeletal system when I was at Mercyhurst College at that time, Mercyhurst University now. So a lot of you that have been through the Mercyhurst, the college era, the university era, you're going to recognize her. It's Sue Sweeney. She's touched so many lives. I think of all the classmates that I had. We had a very small but intimate group in the athletic training department, and she's a legend. So stay tuned. Looking forward to this episode.
All nurses to the nurses station.
Lawless country people are real close family. Lately some of my kinfolk don't get around too good, you see. When that doctor asked them, son, how'd you get in this condition? They says, hey, soft bones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got some pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, soft bones, I'm just carrying on it old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hey Sawbones, My Story, My Passion. I'm Dr. Ryan Molly, orthopedic surgeon, entrepreneur, cutter of bones, business owner, but most importantly, loving husband and father of 3 very busy young boys. And tonight, this is a bit of a throwback episode. I'm really excited about my guest. Really helped to shape me who I am professionally and along with the whole community. And as you can probably notice, I'm in a little bit of throwback Mercyhurst College. This is before it was Mercyhurst University. So one of my teachers, professors at Mercyhurst, I'm going to still call it college because that's what it was when I was there. But without further ado, Sue Sweeney. So,
hey.
Sue.
Hey, Ryan.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me here.
So as we always start these episodes out, I like for my guests to be able to kind of get to know who you are. So who is
Sure.
Sue Sweeney? Like, I know we chatted a little bit upstairs
Yeah.
when you first came in, but where'd you grow up? Kind of maybe your family background and kind of all the way up through current. And then we'll get into some more of the details as we go.
Ryan, that's a lot of years.
We have 2 hours and 44 minutes,
Oh,
I noticed on the
goodness.
memory card. So.
All right. So I was born in Buffalo, New York, lived there till I was about 12 years old, and then moved to Sherman, New York for a short time, and then Findlay Lake. So grew up in that a lot, spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandfather was a veterinarian, and probably my favorite place to be when your grandfather has a kennel right at their home and you have animals at your disposal at all times and you get to go on calls. It was great. Now I look back and like what amazing learning experience and communication and I think relationships was the biggest part of it. Findlay Lake is where my heart is. If you ask me like where I'd want to be at any time or any place, that'd be it.
Did you grow up on the lake?
On the lake.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So my dad passed away last year. My mom's still there and stuff in the family house on the lake. So yeah, that was small community, graduated class of 28. Yeah.
I thought my graduating class of 106 was small.
Yes. So very small.
What high school?
Climber.
Okay. Yeah.
So Climber Central School. So right now and stuff, though, just a shout out, Climber Sherman Panama is a combined school, and they're in the second round of state championships for football.
That's
so
awesome.
I think second or third round. So it's very cool.
So how big are they now since they combined those schools?
They only combine for sports. There's still
Okay.
3 separate schools. So
Wow.
when the need is there, they combine for sports. So it's neat to see because huge rivalry. Those were our rivalries growing up. Like you were friends with Sherman kids and Panama kids. But again, when it came to being on the field or the court or whatever, it was, leave
So
it all
you didn't
there.
combine back then, though?
No, we were all separate.
You guys could not have had a football team with 20-some students.
Well, my class was the smallest one. The class above me was like 70 some.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what it was about us, but
Yeah.
but it was cool. I mean, it was neat growing up in a small community. And times have changed, but it's just it was a great way to build relationships. And just have every opportunity was there. This weekend I was cleaning out downstairs and my mom, she's the mom that kept everything.
So is my mom.
Yes. So I found the bag with all my letters and stuff, like my Letterman jacket letters and stuff. And
I
so
think I meant like boyfriend letters or
no,
stuff
yeah,
like
no.
that. My mom kept that stuff too.
No, oh geez. but like all the pins, because you did everything. You were the statistician for boys basketball. You played basketball. You cheerlead, like you did everything. And because the opportunity was there, you didn't get cut from things, very often.
So after Clymer, where'd you head after that?
After Clymer, then I went to Mercyhurst, actually. So I'm a 88 alum of Mercyhurst and graduated a bachelor's in sports medicine with a concentration in athletic training. And then went to Western Michigan University for a master's degree, went like a full year, kind of started in the summer and ended in the summer. So it was like 4
Are
semesters.
they the Cowboys? Or the Chippewas? Broncos. Okay.
Yeah. Central Michigan, I think, is the Chippewas, if I
So
remember correctly.
Karen went to Central.
Okay.
And then her cousin's husband went to Western.
All right. I love Kalamazoo is a great city. It's very a little bit Erie-ish, but kind of like that more Midwest, a little bit laid back more. But it was a great time, but it was a full just 1 year. And then I stopped at Mercyhurst to say hi to Brad Jacobson, see what's going on. He said, well, we think we'll have a position open next year. And I'm like, okay. And here I am all these years later. I was actually hired by UPMC, which was Hammett back then, as a clinical athletic trainer, but assigned to Mercyhurst is where I worked. And I think about 3 or 4 years in, I became a Mercyhurst employee.
And since then, so
Yeah.
we're talking early to mid 90s till current.
Yeah,
right?
it would have been like 89. So I went like 88 to 80. Like I said, I graduated in 88, and then I came back actually in the fall of 89.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been there forever.
Do they have any like statues of Sue
No.
Sweeney up yet?
No,
Not yet?
I'm still not the oldest, like been there the longest and stuff. There's some professors. Like,
How long's Brad been there?
he got there, I think, a couple years before, so like 82, 81. Do you remember Daryl Georger? He taught in hospitality management.
I don't.
Yeah. So I was talking to him today, and he jokes around with me, but he was there a couple years before me, 82.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yep.
Good times. So, you have a family, you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
You were down in Pittsburgh, was it last weekend?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, my son's a Green Bay Packers fan, and my daughter just got married October 7th. So now her
Congratulations.
yeah, it was awesome. Her husband Dylan is a Pittsburgh fan. So my son Bowden and Dylan went to the game, and then because it was Packers and Steelers, and then my daughter and I just kind of bummed around, outside of Pittsburgh and stuff. And
Go shopping or?
a little bit, yeah. But just it was nice to hang around with her and not have to worry about wedding stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's just to like kind of chill and relax. And I think she was kind of still a little brain dead from the wedding and just letting her brain rest, which was good.
So when did she get married?
October 7th, she got married.
Oh, she already.
Yes.
Oh wow.
So like
this
yeah, they've been married for.
Did they do a honeymoon yet or?
No, they live in Altoona, and they are renovating their house. So they've been together since, 7 years, since she was a senior in high school.
Okay.
So she's 24, and
What is her name again?
Taylor.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So they got married October 7th, and no honeymoon right now because they're renovating, and then found out they need to put a new roof on their house in the middle of the
expensive.
Yes. So they're pretty logical that way. Yeah, which is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit before we kind of went on the air here about kind of the format.
Sure.
So kind of a mutual interview. So I always let my guests have the opportunity to go first.
Okay.
I don't know what's harder, asking the questions or getting asked the questions, but
Yep.
3 business questions, then 3 personal, then we'll turn the table.
Okay. Well, I think this is business wise. So when you were at Mercyhurst, you majored in athletic training, sports medicine, athletic training. What were the pros and cons when you left Mercyhurst to go on like to medical school and everything of having an undergraduate degree or having that experience as an athletic training student?
So, when I was at Mercyhurst, my goals was never to be a orthopedic surgeon. I was planning to go into chiropractic school. And so I always really, really liked the musculoskeletal system.
Yep.
That was kind of my passion. And, I just happened to be taking the classes that I took, pre-med classes as well, so that I would be able to get into chiropractic school.
Yep.
Lo and behold, ended up at Michigan State during a spring break trip with Greg Beato and met Greg Coppola, who was up there. He was a fellow at the time. And literally was one of those light bulbs that went off that my plans changed. And I was like, I want to become an osteopathic physician. So when I got into osteopathic medical school, I can tell you that hands down, the anatomy background that I had, the understanding of the musculoskeletal background, the kinesiology that we took, all of the special kind of orthopedic exams, even going into residency, I was so far ahead from my kind of fellow classmates because we've been there, we had done that, and the clinical knowledge, right? So it's not just like book stuff. And I also think just the work ethic, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people, when they think about athletic training, they don't realize like how many hours athletic trainers put in. I mean, you're there at least an hour before every practice. You're there at least an hour after every practice. You're not traveling on every road trip as a student, but quite a few of them, depending upon the sport that you've been assigned. And then you have to do all your classes too. So it's like playing a sport every single season, along with a very full academic like caseload. So you kind of learned how to budget your time. You had to, and if you weren't going to do well, right? Either with your clinicals or with your classes. So I think just my understanding of, like I said, the anatomy, the physiology, the kinesiology, and then the overall work ethic and how to budget time really set me up for success going into medical school, because medical school was volume. I don't want to say it wasn't, the information and the classes weren't difficult, the subject matter, but it was just like literally trying to drink from a fire hydrant where it's just getting shoved down your throat.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. It's just like 500 PowerPoint slides, learn them all.
Yep. And you got a test next Monday.
Yes. Very true. Well, that's cool because again, that athletic training piece is such a broad, and it prepares you because you have to do so much more than most undergrad kids have to do.
And two, like being assigned with athletes and with different sports, you had to start to work on your interpersonal communication skills, right? Like how many times have you met physicians where they probably never learned that? And it's a struggle for them to be able to sit and talk to somebody and, put their hands on somebody. And that was the other thing too, is like, I'm blown away how many times I see orthopedic surgeons that don't really do a physical exam.
Yes.
And I'm just like, seriously, how do you know if the ligaments are lax or not? And it just major steps are sometimes skipped.
Yeah. I remember learning that from Dr. Rogers, Vince Rogers. Who
Yeah,
used to
I've
be
heard a
down
lot about him.
At Hammett. And at that time, I worked at Hammett and I was down there, and he would look at the residents and ask them a question, and he'd wait, give them time. And then he'd look at me as the athletic trainer. He'd say, Sue, can you answer this question? Like the first and second year residents. He'd like, can you answer this for them? And I'd be like, oh boy. But he was just great. Like he's same thing. Like you got to put your hands on, you got to learn, you got to, tests are great, but that relationship you build with your patient by that being able to actually put your hands on and being able to identify structures and say, is this where your pain is, kind of thing, then the trust is built from there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, all right. Next question. What made you, because it seems like it is a goal of yours to make sure that people stay physically active throughout your life. Like, where did that importance come to you? Because you could have been a surgeon and been an orthopedic surgeon fixing ACLs and all that, but why that need to like lifelong activity for people?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just kind of my upbringing, right? I was
Yeah.
always playing sports. All my sisters were playing sports. All my friends were playing sports. Again, going into athletic training, so you're around athletes. So you're seeing these physically fit people. And to me, I would say probably 2 or 3 years into my practice, so 2011, 2012, I really started noticing just how impactful bad decisions were making on people's lives, right? With comorbidities, whether it was obesity, whether it was smokers, whether it was malnourished people that maybe aren't necessarily obese, but they're malnourished,
Right.
Diabetics,
Yes.
you know, all the just that multifactorial bad decision making that can lead to a lot of downstream consequences within the musculoskeletal system, but also other things, right? So I always call it poor protoplasm. So I can see a patient and, you know, you're talking to them like, do you have any of these diseases?
Yes.
And I'll say
Yep.
heart disease, lung disease, kidney. They're like, nope, I'm perfectly healthy. And I look and they've got edematous
swell.
ankles with
Yeah.
chronic venous stasis, skin changes, just poor circulation. And their lymph system is not functioning. And I can just say, man, I can smell badness
Yes.
with them. So it was very evident to me that if I wanted to be doing these elective surgeries, joint replacement surgeries, that it was very important that I needed to help emphasize the importance of overall lifelong health, right? So not just, hey, let me cut you open, put metal and plastic in you and make you feel better, but let's modify some of these lifestyle habits that you have, whether, again, it's smoking or how they're eating, what they're eating, and then really trying to get their diabetes under control. And to me, a lot of times you can cure it just
Yes.
by, you know, weight loss and proper nutrition and diet.
Yeah, that lifestyle medicine piece is becoming finally
Huge.
coming.
Yeah, functional medicine, lifestyle medicine
Yes.
is one of my really good buddies. He's a trauma orthopedic surgeon. He's a couple
Okay.
years younger than me.
Yep.
We were partners in Michigan for a year, but his name's Blake Miller. Blake, huge shout out to you. He just started kind of a functional medicine / lifestyle medicine.
Cool.
Is he in Saginaw? He's in Michigan. He's on the western side there.
Okay.
But Karen, she gets his emails and his newsletters
Right.
every week, and she shares them. I'm just really proud of him because he's
Yeah.
doing some amazing things with that type of stuff. And you've got Greg Coppola doing very similar
Yes.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what even at the college level now, talking to students about lifestyle medicine and how lifestyle choices, a lot of times the choices that you start to make now are choices that can last your whole life. So trying to bring that up with them as they just kind of look at you. And I'm like, I said, well, what are you going to do to deal with your stress when you're 40 years old? I said, what are you doing now? Well, having a few drinks here and there.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, what other coping strategies do you have to deal with stress? And they just kind of stare at you.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, you can get away with that when you're younger, and you may think, well, it's easy to blow off some steam by having a
Right.
couple drinks or whatever it may be, right?
Yep.
Some type of chemical to
Yes.
kind of help them cope. And the more I think about not just like your physical health, but your mental well-being too, right? Like being able to talk, being able to communicate openly with people. I have a life coach that I've worked with
I've
for
heard,
almost
yeah.
3 years now. And
Yep.
Allison, I know
Yep.
she tunes in every once in a while. She's amazing. She recently just relocated down to Savannah, Georgia, but
Okay.
we still talk almost every couple weeks.
That's
and
great.
she works with my staff on a regular basis every Wednesday. And just huge shout out to that too, because you can be physically healthy, but if you're not mentally and emotionally healthy as well, it's hard to stay on track and
through.
keep those good habits rolling.
Yeah, that's something I'm working on right now as a life coach
Are you really?
certification. Yeah, it's been really interesting, the behavior modification piece of it, because it's the total difference of like in athletic training or as a physician, everything is like, oh, how do I fix this?
Right.
And I'm the one that's going to help fix this for you. And you have to like flip the grid basically. I'm like, okay, the person, it's all patient centered and what their abilities are and being able to capitalize on there and let them kind of lead the way, but you kind of guide them along the path.
Where are you learning this, or where are you?
I'm using it's the American College of Exercise, so
Okay.
ACEs, and then I'm working towards. I've done the bigger one, so working towards like the national certification in
awesome.
wellness coaches. So because it's something I want to bring to college campus.
Yeah.
The counseling center, they're busy all the time on campus. So let's figure out some of the needs basically that are more some basic stress management that can be like time management skills. healthy relationships, all that kind of piece. And also the
Oh boy, we've
fitness.
got a visitor.
Hello there.
So this is the first time we've had a dog visitor. This is Gigi, our golden doodle. Hi, Gigi. How are you? That's okay. Come on in. Here, let me get up. We have tea coming our way, Sue.
Aw, very nice.
So
Hi.
This is the lavender.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Gigi's like, I'm all in for that.
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Karen. So lavender chamomile tea. So cheers,
It's
Sue.
delicious. Cheers.
Thanks again for
Thanks
coming.
for inviting me. Not my usual Monday night,
Good Monday Night Football game on tonight too. So the
who's playing tonight?
the Eagles and the Chiefs.
The Chiefs. I was going to say it's got to be Kansas City Chiefs
Yeah.
and somebody.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good game tonight. But
Cool.
so I love the fact that you're doing that
Yeah.
and trying to incorporate that into the Mercyhurst kind of culture.
Yeah.
And do you see that getting into like the sports medicine?
I do. Some of the student athletes, I already kind of work with them. Some of the coaches are like, well, I'm not sure if you need to go to the counseling center. Why don't you go see Miss Sweeney? Football especially, like I'm Miss Sweeney to them or Miss Sue. So a lot of times they come and we just kind of talk about, what's going on and, how they can kind of help themselves a little bit more. I'm really big on the idea of like, hey, what can you do? We've gotten, I think, into a society of what can you do for me, or I'm not, not helping ourselves as much, and trying to empower the students and these young 18 to 24-year-olds to kind of realize that they have the ability to overcome obstacles and they have the opportunities there. It's just kind of stepping forward into it. It's that, we talk about that uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
Kids today do not like that. They don't like being uncomfortable. So one of my colleagues was talking about a book called, I think it's called The Comfort Crisis kind of thing.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, that idea and that it's almost like you go and when you get into an uncomfortable situation, it becomes almost like a crisis mode rather than, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to step into this and I'm going to be okay. So it's kind of teaching that along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of too many people that really look forward to uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
But I would personally say that, I dread them when they're coming up. But on the other side, I feel like they're the moments where I've grown the most, learned the most.
The growth mindset
Yeah.
piece of that. I'm just talking to I still teach one class, a human growth and development class, and we were talking about that today of, you can choose to kind of not engage in a situation, but when you engage in what you learn from it, sometimes it is, the difficult parts of things. Because every day I start the class with a question. Today it was, well, what are you grateful for? Because Thanksgiving coming up. And they're like, friends and family. I'm like, okay, stop. I'm like, let's be a little bit more specific. And it was neat how the conversation
What were some of the best answers you got, or most genuine, I guess?
One of my students said, like, I'm thankful for being able to go to college. And I'm like, okay, can you explain more? She's like, I'm one of 7 children. And I asked her, I go, you first generation? Yes. And she's the first out of 7 kids. And she's the youngest that's had an opportunity to go to college.
That's pretty impressive, especially with this age group
Yes.
too, right? I mean, because I feel like you don't find that
No.
too much anymore. Like
Yep.
it's usually at least second generation
Yeah.
or oftentimes more. But
Yeah. So it was cool to see that. And it was kind of eye-opening to students that you could tell in their family it was just a normal rite of passage.
you got after high school, you go to college. Right? It's the next step.
Yes. And she's also doing ROTC, and it was cool to see. Like it's one of those things that it was a learning process kind of for everyone. So yeah, that was kind of a cool thing to see that happen. And I do that every class is because it takes that uncomfortable moment away. Because
Did you go through the entire class?
entire class.
How many students per?
25 to 30, depending on the day. Yeah. But, it's everything. What's your favorite color? It can be, we ask middle names, favorite, movie that you've watched multiple times. But then we ask, like, who's your role model? A little bit more serious questions. Yeah. But it's a way to break the ice. But then for them to also know that they all of a sudden we do favorite Halloween costume when you were a little kid, and all of a sudden you have like 5 Ninja Turtles in the room. So they're immediately connected.
Yeah.
So try to create some type of connection.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a class it's one of my favorite things.
Is that the human growth and development?
Yeah, but I've named it now Developing Humans.
Okay.
It's the class. So it is. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to teach. There's not the stress of I got to make sure I get every, muscle origin insertion action, every special test. But it's cool. We go from like birth to death.
OAIN, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I actually love that.
So
Because that was how my
do I.
brain worked.
Yes.
I was very anatomy based, and
Yes.
it was just like that stuff just made sense to me.
Yeah.
The chemistry is not so much.
Yeah,
as much
had to
as
work
that.
at that. Yeah,
same.
But I love origin insertion action and being able to think of how the body works and how it's connected. And I think the last 15 years of sports medicine has been so cool of how we've really the kinetic chain and not just thinking everything moving basically forwards and backwards.
Just sagittally, right? It's so complex.
Yes, and now having the frontal like different planes that we move through and why that's so important. I just think it's cool.
You know who I've started working with as Tyler Travis.
Yeah, I just saw him at lunch today.
Really?
I helped bring him on board and stuff more as our because he's our director of our strength and conditioning.
Do you know
Mercyhurst.
Kyle Mihook?
No.
So he works under Tyler.
Okay.
He actually started coming and training Karen and I.
Oh, okay.
In
Awesome.
January, my
Yeah.
new word for this, one of my new words for this year was wellness, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to focus on wellness throughout everything for
Yep.
me. But so Karen and I, we work with Kyle. It's funny because Kyle is a lot younger. He's like 22
Yeah.
and went to our church
Oh, okay.
where I grew up. So he went to Maplewood.
Very
So he's
cool.
like a
yeah.
hometown kid. I
Yep.
knew him from, just watching him grow up, and he comes here a couple days a week now.
That's cool.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Tyler set up a nice program for us to kind of work on everything that you're talking
Yeah.
about, right? And it's a lot of like functional stuff, right?
is.
Like suitcase carry, and it's not just your standard, just free weights and
No.
things like that. So
It's the things that you don't realize that everything engages. It engages the core. It engages, keeps
it's a
you
lot
better
of core
upright.
stuff.
Posture, like that whole posture piece, like the students, I'm on them all the time because we're like the turtle, like and all like when
Well,
bend
yeah,
over that forward.
you got to remind me right now. I mean, because I'm horrible, but it's
Yep.
part of my job, right? It's occupation where you're bending over, and I catch myself daily, just always crunched like this, kind of
Yep.
looking down into a wound.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
well, what else?
I'm trying to think. I had a couple other questions in that when it came to like job wise, like what's it feel like when you're stumped and you're not quite sure in your role? Because I feel like you're supposed to have all the answers.
Like in surgery?
Yeah.
So, there's so much of what I do that's very, very redundant. Like
Yep.
I do 2 surgeries,
Yes.
hip replacement, knee replacement.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to make it sound like I have because I don't have all the answers, but you've almost always been in a situation
Right.
like that before. There was one time that I can remember recently within the
Yep.
past 6 months, where by far and away the most scared I've ever been in my entire life,
Yep.
professionally, personally, either. And I was doing a knee replacement, and literally the back of the knee was bleeding. It was dark
Yeah.
blood, so I knew it was venous blood.
Yep.
It was an older gentleman, late 80s, and I was just like, all right, I'm not a vascular surgeon.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to get this under control. So
Right.
it was, Sue, though, the thing that got me through that was prayer, quite honestly. It was one of those moments. I had visitors too in the OR,
Oh.
which,
That's
I
tough.
have periodically,
Yep.
but it was just one of those, all right, this is crunch time, right?
Yep.
So said some prayers, just did good classic technique. And I was just
Yep.
thinking about how would Dr. Lombardi handle this? How would Dr. Barron handle this? Some of my mentors surgically.
Yes.
And quite honestly, though, I think the power of prayer was really what got me through it more than anything else. And came home, and you want to talk about emotions coming out. I remember I just came home and I was like, Karen, I can't even talk. And I laid down
Yeah.
in my bed, and my 3 boys knew that I was hurting.
Yep.
And because I didn't know what was going to happen to this gentleman, I had to actually transfer him to a higher acuity hospital.
Yep.
And I reached out to the vascular surgeon. Fortunately, everything was fine. It was a small branch off the popliteal vein that he had super calcified vessels, and when I translated his tibia anteriorly, it almost plucked it off of the main vein.
Yep.
And it was just like you're trying to coagulate a vessel that's sclerotic, so like it's not like it's contracting or
right.
And fortunately, the vascular surgeon called me and said, "Hey, you didn't cut anything. It pulled off." He goes, "It clotted.
Right.
He's fine. No need for any surgical intervention."
Right.
But that was about the hardest 4 or 5 hours that I've had because I was worried.
Yeah.
And my boys saw me, like, not trying to get super emotional here, but I was in tears.
Oh, sure.
And my wife knew how much I was hurting because I didn't know if I hurt this guy. Yeah. And I was just thinking like, oh my God, I just hope his leg's going to be okay. I hope he's going to be okay.
Right.
And I've seen him. I saw him probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, actually. Came in for his 6-month follow-up.
Okay.
He's doing great. But again, it was just one of those moments that, so I wouldn't say it was one of those stumped moments, but it was one of those like challenging moments where I was just like, I hope I can get through this.
Yeah. It's really neat that a lot of just being around physicians in a lot of years and that wouldn't share something like that as openly.
No, I mean,
which I think is cool that you're willing to like.
We're human, right? And to think that we don't have those issues or potential complications is just like not being honest.
Yeah.
So not easy to talk about, but I've talked about it enough with my close friends. It's just like, why not?
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean you're a bad surgeon or this or that.
Cool.
So personal stuff.
Personal stuff. What brings you joy? I'm a big that there's a difference between joy and happiness.
Spending time with those I love.
Yeah.
So whether it's my family, like my parents, sisters, their families, obviously my nuclear family here with Karen and the boys, my in-laws, I have a great relationship with Jim and Mary.
Yep.
And traveling. I really, really enjoy traveling. I love culture. We've done a lot of it and we're going to do a lot more of it. We spent 2 weeks in Italy a year ago. Yeah. With the Beatos and Susan Ghanem / Beato.
Yeah.
And their 2 boys. And so we're going to go to Greece next year because Karen's Greek.
Okay.
And we're going to go with her family. So we do a lot of hiking. We found Sedona as our new like happy place on earth.
Yeah.
So we've been there the past 2 Easters. We're going again this Easter. And we wake up really early. We go hiking every morning and we do really nice dinners at night. So
very cool.
I just like being active and getting out and honestly just like seeing God's creations. And that's why, to me, hiking's so nice because you're out and you're seeing just the beautiful mountains, the fresh air in your lungs. Yeah. And I'm in awe when I'm anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Sedona, but like you're just seeing the trees, the colors, the smells, the animals. It's to me, it's
your mindfulness work.
Yeah.
And that gratitude. Sometimes we forget that and that, to be happy. One of the students today in the gratefulness said, like, I'm just grateful for the sunshine today. That it just makes
oxygen,
a difference.
Right? Just the oxygen in my lungs. Yeah. And some people it may bother them or scare them, but like I like looking up at the stars at night too and just being like, I am so small.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a negative way, but like really insignificant.
Yeah.
Right? Like I am just a speck of sand on a beach in terms of like time and this and that. That doesn't mean I'm unimportant or that the other specks of sand around me are unimportant. It's just like, wow, there's so much more out there and previous and to follow.
Yeah.
Right? So
I think when sometimes we make things bigger in life than what they are because we assume that everything we do affects, and a lot of things we do affect other people. But a lot of times, like if you can control the controllables and control what you're doing, everything else will kind of ripple out from there.
Will. Yeah, there's nothing that Ryan Molly is going to do or Sue Sweeney is going to do that's going to like probably like end the earth or anything like that. So it's like what I mean is like it's almost comforting, right? Because it's just like it's going to be okay.
Yes.
Like my troubles that seem so big at the moment,
Yes.
it's just like looking around. I'm like, yeah, this isn't that big.
Yeah,
this isn't that big of a deal.
No, and I do. I think a lot of times because between social media and just the world we live in, everything gets amplified so much that sometimes just like kind of step back, take a breath, and realize and stuff that you're going to be okay. We're going to get through this.
Trying to teach my boys that too, because it's just like these things happen at school. I'm like, all right, I'm not trying to minimize this, but like, trust me, in 5 years, in 10 years, you're going to look back on this. You probably won't remember it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's going to be all right.
In that moment, you know, and they're so worried about what everyone else, what's going on with everyone else.
What people think of them. And
yes. Yeah. I guess that this question's gone through my head and I'm like, okay, am I going to ask Ryan this? What are your thoughts about like your kids growing up in the digital world and technological world of today and the effects of that?
Well, it's interesting timing because we have 3 young boys, and they are, our oldest is by far and away the most, I'm just going to use the word addicted to kind of technology. And we really try to do our best to limit screen time, whether it's his iPad, whether it's PlayStation. Like he had a PlayStation that we had down in our like theater room that was a family PlayStation. I never had a video game growing up, ever. And somehow it ended up in his bedroom for the past couple months. Oh. And it's not in his bedroom anymore. So, and that was like the hardest thing for him to grasp. Why he can't have that in his bedroom. I'm like, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And try to talk to him about like dopamine surges and like screen time. And, you know,
I'll have to send you, there's a cool like little 5-minute video and it's done like by one of the, and the way they do it is like cartoon drawings and stuff and that, but it shows how the brain is rewired basically compared.
It's scary.
It is.
It really is scary because I mean, these kids, they get these highs, right? And my youngest son, I mean, they all are on their iPads doing stuff and playing games and this and that, but it's just like, they're like in their own little zone and world and you take it away and it's just like they go into meltdown mode. So I'm very blessed and fortunate that I didn't grow up in that era, but on the same flip side, now we have the challenges, Karen and I, to hopefully raise our boys. And I will say, our boys are very, very active. They're always outside. Like before you came over, we were actually outside shooting, play crossbow. And they play tons of sports. So for kids their age, I would say that they actually are on technology less, but still more than I would like.
Yeah. It's a hard balance in today's world because it is like the idea, like I remember, so I have an 18-year-old son and I would say, get off your game now. And he'd be like, well, Mom, I'm in the middle of a game. And one day he came down like, Mom, like if I was outside playing basketball and there was like 30 seconds or 2 minutes left in the game, would you tell me to get off? And I'm like, or stop playing the game. And I'm like, oh, okay. Cause he's with his friends on there. And I said, but when 2 minutes are up, then there's not another 10 minutes after that.
We're not going to overtime.
So it's a challenge. It is a challenge because sitting in the classroom, like you would, have you taught in a college, like anywhere in a college classroom?
Not
especially
anytime
after
recently.
COVID, like they got so used to being able, like always being on their computers. Every kid comes from a high school that either has Chromebooks or iPads now because we didn't use any paper during that time. And then they all have their phones with them. So it like in the classroom, it used to be like you'd have one kid with their computer open and they were almost embarrassed by it because they had a learning differences and they needed it for note taking or something. Now it's like half the class have their computers on and you know that there's notifications coming or there's games coming and
I would have a really hard time with that.
It's hard. Old school me and that like I tell them like the only reason I'm getting on you this is because I care. I always try to reference that because I need you to be engaged. I need, and if you don't pay attention now while I'm talking, when you go to study, it's going to be 10 times as hard because you're just going to be like, I don't remember her talking about this. Well, it's because you weren't really here. So we have these conversations all the time. And sometimes they look at me and just are like, oh, here she goes again. But it's like 2/3 of the way through the semester, all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, I get it now.
I see it a little bit more because I don't like necessarily teach in a college setting, but like my employees, just their phones and social media throughout the day. And it's just like, there's 2 sides to that. Number one, you should be focusing on the patients and and they're the same people that are telling me that we need more employees because they're
Yeah.
overworked. And I'm like, okay, I noticed that you were on Facebook and this and that. And then, it's just like, I'm not paying you to be on social media.
Yeah.
And I have great employees. I'm not slamming anybody,
but it's definitely the world they've been brought up in and is acceptable. Because I talk to the student athletes a lot about sleep and, getting different, like how to go to sleep easier, how to, again, unplug from social media. So like at least a half hour to an hour beforehand, put your phone away and turn your notifications off. And they just look at me. And I'm like, well, you can have it set so that your mom, your dad, or the emergency phone calls and texts still come in, but set your phone on the other side of the room. And they're like, well, why? I said, because all day long you're programmed, check my phone, check my phone, check my phone. And now you expect to put your phone down away 6 inches from your head and be able to go to sleep in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And they're like, oh, I'm like,
do you have a television in your bedroom?
We do, yeah.
Because I've had a good buddy of mine, Matt. Him and his wife took the television out of their room too, and I've considered doing that, but like, I don't know. I do turn it off. It's not like I generally fall asleep with it on, but like it on sometimes kind of helps me.
My husband, being a contractor, is always around noise. So I think almost that for him, he falls asleep with the TV on all the time. But I think he just needs always noise. Like he was putting in the hardwood floors. Like I was almost in tears because the jarring noise. And he's like, what's wrong? And because he's just so used to it.
Yeah.
But we have the TV on, but I always turned it off. Like it's on for a few minutes and then I turn it off to go to sleep. But he's just used to living in noise. Mm-hmm. It's comforting to him. But it is like trying to tell them that there's research out about like phantom notifications. Like a lot of times people will check their phone, but there's really no notification there. So it's almost like it's like a buzzer going off in your head. Wow. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah. Like I try and do the research and read about it. So when I talk to them about it, like I'm like, in this research study, it says, here's this showing this. Because I don't want them to just think that I'm being mom, because I do get the Mama Sue thing once in a while. And
well, I mean, we grew up on I think a much simpler time.
Did.
I mean, I remember when I was at Mercyhurst, like we just got the internet. And I would have to go down to the library down of the library, but
Old
the basement
Main.
of Old Main.
Still, the computer lab is still there.
and I mean, these were the big old boxy computers. And I'd be like, all right, sweet. I'm going to check my email. And I'd have like 10 minutes to go before it would load up. So I'd go somewhere and come back and it'd come up and I'm like, oh man, this can't get any better than this.
No. And now when you used to hear the sound and stuff of the
like AOL, you've got mail
yes.
or something like that.
Yeah. But now you don't, like if it doesn't connect like right away. Like I had a girl today that she thought her computer crashed on her and stuff. Like I looked over and I'm like, are you okay? And she's just like, yeah. And she like closed her computer and I'm like, is everything? Because she usually takes notes on her computer, which she actually does do that. And she opened it up again. I'm like, what's wrong? And she goes, I think my computer crashed. I'm like, just let it sit for a few seconds and stuff. Give it more than a split second.
I'll give you this thing. It's called paper and a pen.
I know. They don't like that. The other day in class, we did fine motor movement. So I have them actually let them color in class, but we do things have them write with their non-dominant hand. And so the kind of the idea of you have to use your brain to like think about this now. Yeah. We talked about cursive writing, how that's
that's
and that breaks my heart because that's like your personality, like is your signature. How many note like in your notes in high school and college had your signature there? So when you were rich and famous, you could, sure. When you were a rock star or a famous athlete and that, you'd be able to like sign your autograph.
I just think about like, cause I used to obviously take a lot of notes in undergrad, but med school too. And I've been doing note cards. Like if I write now and I'm using my hands all the time, but it's different.
Yes.
If I write and I try to like just write a card out, like a thank you card, like my wrist and hand hurt after writing one card. I can't imagine like if I were to have to go back to school, you would get used to it again, but.
Yeah, we talk about that, like with muscle memory and what's it like during the summer when you don't, because most of them don't do any writing during the summer at their summer jobs. And then when you come back and what your notes look like that first 2 weeks of class, they look like, you're just starting to learn to write again because your hand forgot how to do it.
I look back at some of my stuff when I was in like, again, my mom saved all that stuff. So elementary school, I'm like, wow, I used to have like nice printing.
Yeah.
Went
not
away.
Anymore. Not anymore.
So shall we flip the table here? So
Sure.
I'll do some business stuff first, then we'll go into the personal questions. So business-wise, Was there like an individual for you growing up that really got you kind of intrigued in, whether it was athletic training or the musculoskeletal system, that like, why did you choose that?
Honestly, I was all set to go to Canisius for medical technology and play volleyball there on a scholarship. And then I opened up, it used to be called, I don't remember. It was an Erie paper, but there was an advertisement for Mercyhurst Sports Medicine and athletic training. And I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. So applied and ended up, I always played sports. Like I played, every sport in high school, again, small school. I water skied, so I always found it intriguing. My grandfather was a veterinarian. My mom was a nurse. And I always wanted to, always been big on prevention, I think, and risk assessment. And I felt like athletic training was a kind of lent. I didn't know it then, but now I go back and I have no problem dealing with emergency situations in that, but I'm a big observant person, and I want to know how I can stop something bad from happening. I think that's how my brain works. And the same thing with injuries.
Did you play a sport at Mercyhurst?
I played volleyball for 2 years. And then when I graduate, on a yearly basis, when I went to school, we had over 2,000 clinical hours. So it was really hard to do anything else. But Brad, no offense to Brad, but Brad would be home on his couch and you'd be as a student by yourself covering volleyball, until 10 o'clock at night. And that was just the way it was, because he worked all day and covered everything, and students could be by themselves doing things. And it was really hard to play a sport much more than 2 years.
Yeah.
So
I guess you've transitioned a little bit from when I was at Mercyhurst 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I graduated 2001, so over 20 years ago now. I remember, they had just kind of done that new classroom downstairs.
Yes. Yep.
And since then, you've gotten the new classrooms upstairs, which have even been renovated since then.
Correct.
I think I've heard.
Yep.
But when did you transition kind of from the athletic training piece over to, are you kind of admin now? Or
yes.
When was that transition?
So this would be, let's see, this is my first, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we wrote a grant for the NCAA for a position for a health and well-being for an assistant athletic director position. And there's a couple positions within the NCAA that we need as a faculty athletic rep. And I'd been the faculty athletic representative for for athletics, obviously, for about 8 years. And then I was the healthcare administrator, which also was another role. So I'd been doing things in athletics, and I was finding a lot of joy in that. Wrote the grant, and we got the grant, and I said, I'm going to apply for this. I was ready to kind of get out of I enjoy teaching greatly. I was tired of the administrative part. When you're in an accredited program, you're just constantly jumping through hoops. And athletic training, they've been flipping hoops and changing hoops for every 3 years, it seemed like, and just got tired of recreating and was ready for a change. So that was 5 years in athletics. And then this is my first year, more or less. This is the first time I've been on the other side of campus. So my office is in Egan now, third floor of Egan. So under student life. But the 5 years in athletics was very cool. I did a lot of education awareness with the athletes. And then also you had a part of a job was a sport administrator or sport supervisor. So I think I had 7 sports that I kind of had oversight of their budgets and coaches and student athletes, and just making sure that, things ran smoothly, or if there was issues to deal with, helped with that. And then also took proposals to the athletic director. So that which was cool, but I loved I got to still teach, but I didn't have to check all the boxes kind of thing. If I want to talk about this, let's do alcohol awareness. Let's do hazing awareness. Let's do stress management. It allowed me just to have conversations more than teaching.
So what's your official title now?
So now I'm campus health and well-being director.
Okay. So you're not really in the athletics?
No. I still do the education piece with them. So in the fall, in the first 6 weeks, I do 2 meetings per team. Okay. The first one's kind of a laundry list of all the NCAA stuff we have to go through, from mental health to supplements to drug testing, concussions, all of that. And then every year I do another topic. Like last year we did alcohol misuse and hazing. And then this year, it was stress management. And I pay attention, the student athletes at the end of their seasons, they fill out a survey. And we added like kind of, again, like a laundry list of all different topics. And stress management was one of their top, I think it was their top one. So we decided that was a good route to go.
Awesome.
So
you've been at Mercyhurst now for 84, right?
Yeah.
So coming up on
almost 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of changes administratively.
Yeah.
Physically. I mean, even when I go to the campus, I've been there half the time.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, I don't remember that building. I don't remember that building. But what would you say is your favorite thing about Mercyhurst, like the culture and maybe some of the changes that you've seen from when you first arrived there as a freshman to today when you're there almost 40 years later?
I think it's always the ability to grow and change. I think from like, if I look at it as myself, like I've been given all these opportunities where I was a clinical athletic trainer, part-time faculty clinical athletic trainer, then went to full-time faculty, you know what I mean? So I've been there for a long time, but I've really had like 5 different jobs that have all built on each other. I've been given the opportunity to be like, okay, here's my strengths. How can I use those? So I think that's really, when you're at a small institution like that ability to look to people and be like, wow, they're really good at this. How do I connect them? Right. So I think Mercyhurst is really good at like looking at people's strengths, not using them, but allowing people to grow into them, which I think is really neat. And that sense of community, that was kind of, I think, a question I had for you. Like, what do you like when it's at Mercyhurst, besides the memories of all the fun, like what was that thing about Mercyhurst that you kind of say like, that was just really cool, you know?
It's that community feel, right?
Yeah.
So it's, and I think you can go to a lot of different schools and have that feeling. Like, I feel like if you asked somebody from Notre Dame,
right?
What is it? It's that culture, it's that feel, it's that unity, that's that community.
Yep.
And I feel like I run into these random people. Like I've had a couple orthopedic implant reps that, hey, doc, you know, I played hockey at Mercyhurst, or I did this at Mercyhurst. And you almost feel like you have this instantaneous connection to these people.
I was just going to say that when you do alumni, when we go for like the alumni national conventions for athletic training, you'll have people that graduated in like my time, and then you'll have someone that's a recent graduate and sit them down at the table together, and they're like, look like they've known each other forever. There's just like this immediate connection.
Yeah, and there's just that feel like when you're on that campus too. I've been up there a couple of times in the past year for our boys and different baseball tryouts and things that they've had, and it's just like I'm just very proud of having that opportunity. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Brad for giving me that opportunity in the sports medicine department. I mean, because that is like I've over the past couple of years I've really started focusing on that attitude of gratitude and. Not taking anything for granted. All of the opportunities that I've been given were blessings, and trying to make the most of it, and just looking back on it with just warm memories, right? And I think about like the fun stuff. You know, I think you're my third Mercyhurst, so I've had Coach Joe Spano, now the athletic director, John Melody, the former soccer coach and bar owner, restaurateur, now yourself. Definitely going to get Brad on here at some point.
Nice.
But, you know, we were just talking about just the memories of people. Well, Jared too. I mean, he's Greg Beato's going to be on here.
Oh, great.
Susan's father has sent me a couple. He'll be watching this. Carrie, how you doing? He sends me a couple emails, and just like, he's like, other than my mom, my wife, and my mother-in-law, he's like the most faithful fan. He's just like, hey, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
But the one, because he was in my class, but Nick Potter.
Yep.
You know, just some great talented people have come out of there and done some amazing things.
Yeah. We just, we're trying to work with Nick. I think actually one of our students went down there, so I keep in touch with Nick. We actually had a call last year. We were talking about at Duke how they're doing more like, again, he does the physical, more the functional, almost like functional medicine, medicine side. But then they're also tracking sleep and nutrition, and how he was developing this program, so they could see that, okay, if someone has only slept this many hours, like, okay, how are they feeling coming to practice today?
Their performance is going to be affected.
Right, and how does that affect them physically? So yeah, we met last year with, which was Josh Long, who's now the program director for the athletic training program and the sports medicine chair.
I think I met him up, honestly, it was when the boys were trying for baseball up on the baseball field, and I think he was doing football at the time, and I went up and saw he had an athletic training shirt on. I introduced myself to him.
Yeah. So it was neat in that. So I would say every year there's a few like alumni that we just kind of connect with, and it's neat because I can send an email to anybody. Like I said to Nick, like I'll send an email to Nick, like, Nick, I have a student that's interested in coming to Duke, or they just need someone to talk to. Will you? Sure, just send them give them my cell phone number, have them call me, and that. So I think that's one of the nicest things. There is that family and that idea and stuff, like when you say like all the opportunities, but you also took advantage of those opportunities, not in a bad way, but in a great way. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And same thing like Nick. I remember Nick sitting, he always had hip injuries, which is funny because that became his thing that he kind of, hung his hat on. And, but I remember him sitting there going, well, I don't know. I got another year of eligibility because of injuries, but I got into Duke PT, and I just looked at him and I'm like, Nick, opportunity here. Let's think about this kind of thing. And, but yeah, it's been really neat to see you guys and to walk around and see names like Michelle Poland, who's a primary care doctor in Erie and does women's medicine. She's a Mercyhurst grad. You know what I mean? There's just people around as much as we talk about being from Mercyhurst, it's not like I don't know. There's also this quietness about who you are and where you're from. So, which is that humble part of it.
But I'm very proud to be a Mercyhurst Laker.
Yeah.
And my sister was there too. Yes, so some great memories of going to watch her play basketball there. They had a great team her freshman year. Went to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I was with them.
With Jim Webb, right?
North Dakota State.
And
Yep, I was with them.
Teresa Zumagala and
Denise
Baginski.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a great
they
team.
were great. And I like Denise and I just, because she is married to Greg Fitzgerald, who I think it's Denise, right? That played football for us. They live in Ohio, and she was messaging me on Facebook.
She had a twin, right?
Yep. There's Danielle and Denise. Yeah. But she was, talking to me about her son and stuff, and that he was looking at Mercyhurst. And so it's neat. Like, I'm not on social media probably more, but I love watching on Facebook, like, students from the past post and what they're doing and their kids and it's the neatest thing to watch them evolve, now being parents of high school kids that are athletes or young kids, and that it's really cool to see.
Are there any things about Mercyhurst, again, changing of administration that you miss, that, again, not to be negative, but just like,
it's changed a lot, I guess, in the administration when it comes to and it's not as much Mercyhurst, it's just higher education as a whole. It's just changed. There's this push, like you hear a lot in higher ed, the enrollment cliff. Like there's going to be, there's less and less kids graduating from high school, and less kids means a smaller pool to recruit from. So there's this pressure in higher education that didn't exist. And that's everywhere. And also people giving back. Like when you see like a WVU, like consolidating like academic schools, like who would have ever thought, things like that. During COVID, when sports were dropped and people are like, how can this big school, because if they're not filling their football stadium, they fund themselves. Like Ohio State Athletics funds Ohio State Athletics. There's no tuition money that comes to them. It's all basically by putting butts in the seats and selling gear. And when that wasn't happening, but they're like coming out of COVID and the enrollment cliff, like higher education across the country is just a lot more pressure. And I think I miss that feeling of we're all in this together, like everything, you know what I mean? Everything's going to work out. It is. It's just more pressure, I think, on everyone to retaining students is a big part of it. Like when you get them there, there's less to recruit. So your numbers are maybe going to be a little bit smaller. So you've got to figure out a way to keep them all here.
It must be an extraordinary challenge. I know you're not necessarily in the classroom anymore, but you're still dealing with students on a daily basis, but just seeing the generations come through, right? Yes. Whether it's the Generation X or the millennials or this or that, like they all behave differently. They think differently.
Yeah.
They learn differently.
Yep.
Like, how were you able to adapt to multiple generations with your interactions with them?
I
Do you
think
take courses on that, or like?
I read about it. There's no doubt about that. And we've done a few presentations on like the generations and how they learn. But I think it's honestly them. I see when they understand that I'm teaching things and expectations or accountability pieces, it's because I honestly care. I don't think there's, maybe there's probably a few kids out there that don't get that about me, but they know that I care about them. And if I'm asking them to kind of think a little bit differently, or I'm also adjusting how I present material to make sure I get it to them, I do. You just have to adjust to them. But when they know you care about them, they'll engage with you. Mm-hmm. Because I think they have come through, especially probably in the last 5 years, of just checking boxes and getting things done, and a lot of high pressure and a lack of, I think, as much human contact, I think, in the school systems. And that, I think COVID, it is and it's not COVID, but it was the lack of interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
It is, you can just see it with the students, like asking a student to go talk to their faculty member. Like, you never thought twice about that. Well, they have a hard time of that interaction piece because they haven't done as much as what was expected of them, because the opportunity wasn't there for them. And then it is, I think that interaction piece is really hard. And that's why, if they know you care about them, and that's why I take that first 5 minutes of class and we do that little icebreaker. Once in a while we did meditation for a few weeks, but it was just that way to kind of break the ice, to make everybody feel comfortable. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll be in this because she's in it, kind of thing. So, but it's a learning process because they are very different, and it can be extremely frustrating. Oh, like when you're sitting there teaching and they're on their phone.
I would not deal well with that.
And they all look at me like, I said, and I have to get better, because there's times, and I tell them in the beginning, like, if you're expecting a text or a phone call, or you're worried or something comes in, that's okay. But to just be on your phone and be texting, but you can just see it, and I've asked them.
You don't want to have the box where put your phones in the box on your way in.
I know. I heard about this one teacher that has the thing that goes over the door that your shoes go in. Like in an elementary school, and they all go in, and
phones.
Yeah, and they all go in. This is like in junior high, but how do we in college get kids when junior high through high school, they have their phones or they have an iPad? Like, I wonder, like in teaching human growth and development, there's some things we're doing the fine motor movement. And I go, the research on this is going to change, because the writing, like the fine motor movement and all of that, it's going to go to all
Well, AI,
keyboard.
right?
Yes.
I mean, AI is going to write your papers for you now.
Oh, it already does.
Right?
I had one student that handed a paper in, and I'm reading them like, these are not words that you know. I think the world of you, but this is not you. So I asked him, and I give him credit. He was honest, and he used some system that would take his words and actually put in better phrases or words for it. And I'm like, I said, please be authentic. Be genuine, be who you are, because I looked at this and I'm like, this is not. Yeah.
Well, at least he or she was honest, right?
Completely. Like, it's funny. I had another kid, he copied and pasted. I'm like, I said to him, this isn't you. And he's like, I was in a rush. I didn't know what else to do. I panicked. And so they were honest about it, almost to it's just kind of what we do nowadays. Type of deal.
Not in this classroom,
No, and I said to him, I go, what are you going to do when you have a project, or you have something where you have to come up with a strategic plan, or you have to develop something and you don't know how to put your own thoughts down. And I find that more and more that kids don't know how to write an email of more than 2 sentences. Because everything to them is through text, and real short and brief. We have to teach kids to write emails nowadays.
Yeah, in full words, not abbreviations.
Yes.
And
hey, I can't be in class today. I'll get those. That's it.
Yeah.
So we have to teach them that. It's a different world, and it's frustrating. But then I have to step back and be like, okay, why are we here in this situation? Not their fault. It's been what they've been exposed to. Yeah. And that's what we're noticing in college more is like the life skills that kids came with in the past. We have to teach those now, because it leads to, emotional stress, mental health, because the stress goes up, like having to have like going and asking my professor for something or go to financial aid. We are getting more first generation students. So when you call home and you're like, Mom, I'm not getting along with my roommate, that kind of thing. And if you're a first generation, how's the parent going to respond to that? Or
because they haven't been in that situation.
No. So it's respecting that part of like, how can we help with that? Of, we get kids that are upset because my roommate leaves their toothbrush on the edge of the thing, or doesn't roll, like leaves toothpaste on the edge. I'm like, well, did you talk to them about it? Did you have a conversation? Oh, no. And I'm like, okay, bring your roommate in. Let's talk about this.
Communication 101, right? So personal stuff.
Yes.
So I'm going to steal part of your question is, what do you find like joy in life, just outside of work with your family?
The peaceful times, I think. I noticed this weekend Taylor and her husband, which is so weird to say that, like it's been boyfriend, fiance for a while. So she was home. We were at my mom's house. My husband was there and Bowden, my son. And like for a second, I kind of sat back and just watched and listened and didn't partake in, but it was just so cool to see the happiness and the joy. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we're in those moments and we don't just sit back and be like, oh, this is really nice to have everybody together. I think since my stepdad that passed away, my dad passed away when, Taylor, so 25 years ago, but my stepdad became more important in my life after that. And him passing away, I think has made me really kind of like realize that family time is so important and enjoying it. Sometimes you go to family things and you're like, oh, this isn't going to be, or this, drives me a little bit batty while I'm there. Now I'm like, just got to let that go and just be in the moment and enjoy people. But I enjoy relationships and connecting people and watching people connect, and those little sparks go off. You're like, oh boy, they're going to do really cool things.
Yeah. I guess, season of gratitude, right?
Yep.
With Thanksgiving coming up, what would you say the top 3 things are that you're thankful for? I'm going to ask you what you asked your students today.
Sure. I only asked for one. There's 3 of them. I am definitely thankful for my family, my kids, and my husband, Craig, is lucky enough to find him 10 years ago. We went to high school together. I hadn't seen each other for like 33 years.
Wow.
And it was just...
Was it like a reunion where you guys met up again? Or?
Funny story. So...
Sure.
So the house that I lived in and stuff, which was a really nice home, but it needed a new railing. And the people I had come work on the railing didn't do something right. So my stepdad brought Craig, my future husband, to the house to fix it, being a general contractor. And I didn't even talk to him that day, I don't think. I think he saw Taylor that day because I was taking Bowden to a soccer tournament. So I was like out of the house. And then I messaged him and I said, hey, let me know how much I owe you for coming and doing this.
Did you remember that you guys went to school together?
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of knew that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you showed up and saw this guy like, you look familiar.
No, like I was gone that morning and stuff. And then my dad said, my stepdad, who I called Pete and stuff because he's my stepdad. And I said, hey, how much do I owe Craig for coming and, doing this? He's like, well, here's his email or whatever. Just ask him and stuff. So literally my dad brought him to the house to do that. We started all like emailing back and forth and it just kind of
evolved.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Over time, he needed time because he had been married for a number of years and stuff and just kind of, finding himself again. And I feel like it's different now. Like I'm not afraid to say anything to him, talk to him about things and stuff. And we just have a really, really good, solid relationship. So thankful for him and my kids. They're amazing. My 18-year-old son, sometimes I just look at him and shake my head because 18-year-old boys, kind of thing.
Get me scared, Sue. I've got 3 of those coming up.
Yeah, I can't imagine stuff. But it's so thankful for them. Thankful for the relationship that I have with my mom and to have my mom still in my life. She's an amazing woman and been a guiding force and so strong. She doesn't realize that sometimes, but it's, watching her it was always Pete and Barb, and now she's becoming Barb, and she hasn't been, it's figuring that piece out again. And definitely thankful for being grounded in life at this time in my life, I guess, and just to say, like, I'm glad I've kind of figured myself out at this point, because I think it takes a lot of years, and you're busy working a lot of years, and finally, like, this is who I am. I'm always say that and stuff. This is who I am. I'm honest, or to a fault, I think sometimes.
I think that comes with age too, right?
Yeah.
You just start saying stuff.
Yeah. You're just like, yeah, like and I'm more thoughtful on what I say, but then I'm like, okay, if I know this is hopefully going to help in this situation, I'm not going to walk out of the room being like, wow, I wish I would have had a voice there. So
I know it's not my turn to answer a question, but I'm going to, just because again, it is Thanksgiving this week. And one of the things that I've really become grateful for, I would say just in the past year or so, it's just the quiet times.
Yeah.
Right. And my privacy, like, this is not a very private thing. I mean, this is a podcast, but quite honestly, part of this was to be able to give my patients an opportunity to kind of get to see and know who I am personally without like me having, because I can't do that with patients, right? It's just, there's boundaries and things like that. But also being able to share amazing stories of people that have helped me to get me where I'm at. And some of these people I haven't met, like my next two guests, I'm really excited about, but just super successful people.
Right.
But this allows me to not feel like I have to go out. And my wife and I were just talking about this, like, we're not into that big party thing anymore.
Right. Yep.
Like, it's just not fun for me. There's a couple occasions where I'll do it, but I'm so simple now.
Yeah.
Like, I like to just come home and throw sweats on and just be comfy and spend time with the boys and maybe watch a good movie or some sports, but going to like big events and dressing up and it's just not me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You go through those phases where that's fun, but then there's the times where I enjoy being at home. We live on 12 acres and then have 250 acres surrounding us that the guy that owns it is like, I bought this land so no one would build on it. Basically.
So it's all woods or what?
It's all woods and then a big field to the side of us. Like I can kind of see the guy down that he lives across the street from us, kind of kitty corner. And but I can see that house, but it's the only house I can see. And I like sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I had neighbors, but then other times I'm like, it's just nice. I enjoy it. And he's we're going to have a pond. We're going to he's just, I'm like, well, when you're done with the house, what are you going to do? Well, then I'll move on to my next project. He's, which is neat because he's just like fallen in love with the land and watching him create things is pretty cool. I wish I had that creative mind. Like that's not me. I walk in a room and I see a box. Like you're more that creative. Like you two.
Oh, I love
totally vibe. Like
that's my thing.
He does a lot of work over at Chautauqua Institute, and so it's really neat to see the craftsmanship that they do, and because you have to put things back the way they were.
Right. Yeah. This isn't like user interpretation. This is
I wouldn't want it
hundreds of years old.
Yes. Yeah. But it is. It's just that peacefulness and enjoying and realizing that, being alone with your own thoughts is okay.
I spend a lot more time by myself these days than ever, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, when I saw you like walking at when you walked at Presque Isle, were you by yourself?
I don't remember the last time I've been at Presque Isle not by myself.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, I like to do that at least a couple times a week, and
that's good. Good for you. That longevity wise, that will serve you well, because I can think of like people from where I grew up in Findlay Lake and Sherman and all that. Like, they're like, oh, I'm getting a hip replacement. Oh, who's doing that? Oh, Dr. Molly. Like,
got quite a few people from like that Clymer, Sherman
Northeast. Area. I was just getting my hair cut and stuff. And she's like, oh, and Dr. Molly did my mom's surgery.
Yeah, I know her daughter cleans our house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a lot of small connections like that.
So it's like you are, like it's, again, you have, spread out, even though like you're down in Meadville and stuff like that. Like it is, it's hard to go someplace that someone probably doesn't. Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the main reasons when we moved here, as opposed to living in Meadville, was like, I felt like it would be a little insulated up here. And now I'm walking, like I was at Wegmans yesterday with the two boys and we were getting buffalo chicken dip ingredients because they wanted to watch the Steelers game and eat buffalo chicken dip. And I ran into one of my patients. I couldn't remember her name. I think I just met her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Hey," and I was just like, "It's nice, but at the same time, there's a reason they have Instacart too."
Yeah.
Right? Or like when we travel, no one knows me, so it's
Yeah,
just
which
kind of
is
nice to
nice,
just
so you
be
get
able to
away.
But
Yeah. And Meadville's a small, like Meadville, Sagertown, that whole area.
oh
It's a
yeah,
small
and my
area.
family, everybody knows my family,
Yeah.
right?
So you know the Harrisons, Brian and Dee Dee.
Yeah.
So our daughters went to Villa together and stuff.
Okay, yeah, because
so,
they were big Seton.
yes. The two boys and that are in high school now at prep and
Right.
Yeah.
I saw her at Waldemere a couple years ago
Yeah.
in the wave pool.
Oh, I believe it.
And she, I think my wife dropped something, whether it was a bracelet or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And she came up and brought it up to me. She's like, "Dr. Molly?" I'm like, "Huh?" And you just see people out of context. And I was like, "Wait." And she's like, "Yes." And she goes, I think your wife dropped it. Oh, you know what it was? It was her. She definitely knew it was my wife because it was her driver's license.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So she dropped her driver's license and was kind enough to bring that back. But so my last personal question for you, it's kind of a two-parter.
Okay.
So if you could do anything other than your current job or any of your previous jobs or roles, what would you do? And then the second part to that is if you could go and be anywhere, and Findlay Lake doesn't count. I'm taking that out of the equation too. Like if you had to like transport and live in this location and do this occupation, where would it be and what would you do?
I'd be a veterinarian and I'd be in Montana.
That was quick. I think you've thought about this before.
I haven't, but I just kind of put all those. Yeah, I'd be a veterinarian. I think
Like your dad.
Yeah, my granddad and stuff. Like I would.
Oh, your granddad.
My granddad, and probably go more towards like large animal. But we went. So when I got married, we married 5 years ago. We went to Montana for our honeymoon and stayed at a dude ranch there and rode horses in Yellowstone and stayed. It's just greatest experience, and it was just again that peaceful place. That you're just like, you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night and you're just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And neat people. Like we were on the outskirts, like by the Glanton River and a family ranch that they had owned for a number of years. And it was just the sense of family. And again, relationships. I'm all about relationships. And I guess you don't realize that when you're younger, how much you value them.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because I didn't for so long. And it wasn't that I was intentionally not valuing them. I was just kind of like a lone wolf, and I would just, because I needed to be for 20 years of my life to get through what I needed to get through academically. But then as you start to get comfortable in your skin and what you're doing, you start to understand that the importance of people and relationships. And I'm not just saying this because we're recording this right now, but this podcast has been the most fun project I've done in the past 15 to 20 years because it has allowed me to get to sit down with people like you that I haven't really sat down and I've never had this much of an in-depth conversation with you. And getting to know more about you, like my best friend Jared, I learned stuff about him.
Yeah, I bet.
Every single person, there's been something that was just like very just eye-opening to me, and oftentimes a lot of things, like the fact that your grandfather was a vet, and just hearing your story about where you grew up and where you currently live, and your husband. It's touching. So
thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I appreciate this time because we don't get this time with people.
No.
I've followed your career and your family and think you're just doing great things.
Sue, I wouldn't be here, honestly, if it wasn't for you and for Brad and for Janet and for the whole Mercyhurst crew, because top-notch education, top-notch people, taught me how to be a gentleman, taught me how to work hard, taught me the importance of I call them patients now, but they were athletes at the time, which were our patients.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what it's moved to now and that. But I think you came knowing your sister and your parents did a really good job.
Well, thank you. I owe that all to them too, right? Because I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at without them.
There's always a kindness about you and your sister that was, you didn't even have to talk to you to know.
Oh, she's way more kind than me. But
she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. So you got to meet Nathan, her oldest. She has 5 kids.
Wow.
So Nathan's staying here with us for a month because he's doing CDL training.
Cool.
So I think it's in or near Waterford, but he's like, I think he just kind of wants a little bit of time outside of his house too. And
all right.
we really enjoy him. He's
Good.
honestly one of the nicest, kindest gentlemen that I've met, and he's only like 20.
Wow. Doesn't surprise me.
He's very mature.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
So.
So.
Sawbone shoe stretch. So I'm a huge shoe guy.
Yep.
And I always ask my guests to wear something that has a story or is meaningful. And believe it or not, Sue, this has been like, I've had a couple times where I've almost broken down into tears hearing my guests' stories about their shoes. One was Dr. David Hutzel.
Okay.
I mean, if you haven't seen that episode, I would highly recommend watching it, particularly that 5 minutes. And I think we're going to kind of do, I wouldn't call it a highlight reel, but like just my favorite moments from each guest.
Right.
And that's going to definitely be his.
Yeah.
So what are you wearing here, Sue?
These are called Blowfish shoes. And these are my favorite ones because they are, number one, are fleece inside. So they're comfortable. I don't have a long.
They're cute.
They're cute. But I guess as I look at it now, like I wear these to work, but I'm comfortable in my own shoes, comfortable in my own skin now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to like put on heels, and I don't have to be like, this is me. And I probably have at least 12 to 15 pair of these in different colors and that, but they're just super comfortable. I just feel like I'm comfortable with my own skin and stuff of where I am in my life. And these shoes kind of articulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are comfortable. I love them.
Blowfish. So
yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen or heard of Blowfish, but I bet you now that you have mentioned it,
you will notice them.
I'll notice.
Yeah.
Do they make guys' shoes too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. They do and stuff. And like these were before Hey Dudes
Yeah.
came in and that. And I've tried Hey Dudes. I like them, but not the same as these.
Yeah.
But my first pair was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And
Who turned you on to them, or did you just find them?
They were at TJ Maxx, and I thought, oh, these look cool. They look comfortable, and tried them on. I'm like, yep, those work.
So, I mean, back in the day at Mercyhurst, I think Karen always says this too. Like, we'll go out to dinner. I'm like, ooh, can I wear this?
Yeah.
She's like, Ryan, post-COVID, you can wear whatever you want. Anywhere you want, other than a couple places. Like if you're going to the Erie Club, you better put on a sport coat and have a tie on. Yep. But other than that, like the world is so much more casual.
It is.
Would you have been able to wear something like that when?
No, I don't think Brad J would have been okay with that back in the day and stuff. I'd have to wear the like tied up sneakers and look a little bit. But like I would wear this to work. It helps me on the health and wellness side. It can kind of be that like chill person a little bit more. But if I have meetings that I have to be dressed up for, I do.
Sure.
But like walking into a bunch of student athletes and talking to them, I want to walk in and for them to feel comfortable with me. So
it almost takes the armor off, right?
Does.
So you're just kind of like, I don't want to say down to their level, but like you're easier to talk to, I would say.
Yeah.
But if you came in and you were all
if I was all dressed up and stuff, they would then
the wall goes up.
Yeah. Where they're like, I go and sit down next to them when I talk to them and stuff. I'll be talking to like my favorite group, and I'm sorry to all the other teams, but is to talk to football. Put me in the room with 110 football players, and there's something about like the connection that they make, the respect that they have, that they listen. I don't know what it is, but it like
I would think that would be overwhelming because just so many people.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is about them. And I love the eye contact piece with them. I think it's a lot of first generation kids also. If you take like men's basketball is probably my other like and women's basketball, probably the men more is a lot of first generation kids considered to be in the US still poor man's sports. Because there's not as much basketball now more, but like club is not a thing for as much for football.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like other sports and that like pay to play sports is how our kids get to us.
Sure.
They've all played club, which is nothing wrong with it, but it's definitely like when you grew up, the difference between youth sports then and youth sports now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's very different. But there's just something about football. And I think part of it now is even more with Coach Remigio. There's a culture shift where he has like leadership groups, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just formed a leadership group at the request of my leadership / life coach. And it's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. They do it where they have like 12 guys, I think, in a group, and they're from all different years. But they have certain things they have to do. They have to do community service on campus. They have to go to activities. So they are really embedded in the university
Does
again.
every single athlete or every football player part of a leadership group?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you'd
group.
have
Yeah.
110 kids divided by 10 to 12.
Yeah.
So you'd have 10 to 12
Yeah. Yep.
kind of teams.
Yeah.
Or leadership teams, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Or which is great because the upperclassmen will help work with them, but it also helps to kind of bring the
like
youngers along.
And the coach kind of like brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. That's been one of the things that Ryan's instituted since he became head coach. And
I need to get him on the podcast.
and his wife, Morgan Beatty, now Remedio, is an athletic trainer for us. So they've been great. He's from California originally.
How's he adjusting to Erie,
Well,
Pennsylvania?
he's been here for a long time. He played football. Is it Minot, Minot, like up in North Dakota?
Oh, okay.
So doesn't faze him.
Got it.
Yeah, but he's good friend. He's a good friend also, which is.
We'll make the introduction at some point.
I will definitely. Well, we have to get you on campus. So I keep.
Well, you mentioned that when we were just kind of interacting about this, and I would be honored to come and do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah,
honestly.
Because we used to have it on where we would have an alumni day where alumni would come and teach classes, be involved on campus, and that. And I keep trying to bring that back up because. Gary Calabrese used to come from Cleve Clinic.
Yeah.
So, he would come. So it was neat to have that. But I think it's a great opportunity and a way to come in and teach, but then also to...
Well, I'm here in town, so...
we're going to make that happen.
For sure. So I'm wearing the Air Jordan 5s.
Very cool.
These are called the Jade Clots. The jade is kind of a tribute to the Chinese and Japanese culture.
All
The reason I
right.
wore these was, again, the jade being green matches with the green for the
Very
Mercyhurst.
good.
So...
Yeah, you
and
your
they're comfy
sneakers.
too.
Yeah.
So, but
Mine are much cheaper than yours.
possibly.
Just saying. Which is okay.
Yeah, this is my guilty pleasure. So for sure.
That's all right.
So you've watched a couple of these episodes, right?
I have.
So you know what's coming, don't you?
I think so.
I'm gonna let you pick. Are
Yeah.
you gonna be the first guest that I've actually? Well, John Melody, I kind of let him pick too because I knew that if basketball happened, that we'd probably get too competitive, and so we played the foosball game. But
Okay.
so we've got the Sawbones Challenge coming up here. We've got the mini hoop. We could do pig there. We've got the Papa Shot. We could.
Whatever. I'm like game for whatever.
Yeah. So stick around. Sawbones Challenge is coming up next, and we'll see you when we come back.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
All right. Sawbones Challenge. Sue Sweeney. I'll let you. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I guess I'll go first.
All right. Here we go. We're playing pig, by the way.
Okay. So do I just...
Any shot you want. You can do just jumpers. You can do trick shots. You can do.
Yeah, we'll just...
She's going to come in. She's going to be a ringer here. So I do some like odes and tributes to some of the old greats.
Gracious.
So this is my little Kareem.
Yeah.
The hook, airball hook.
I have to try and do that now.
No, I missed it. So you get
I can
whatever
do
you
whatever
want.
I want. I haven't played. Oh, it's so close. I'm gonna have to come up
The
with
Kobe
some
fadeaway.
little- Never took a shot. You're right.
It's gonna be a long game.
It is. We'll give it something easy.
Oh! All right. Just go to the foul line here. This is bad, Sue.
This may take like a lot of filming here to get this done. There's one.
This is gonna be a tough shot, guys.
Why did you want to do it so hard? I think you do this more than I do.
I'll tell you who does this. My boys are.
Yeah, I bet. They've got to love this.
This hoop too. I mean, you can.
Yeah, my son has it on the back of his closet door, or his door.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so upstairs I'll hear that. So you were just playing with me before here, I'm assuming.
Well, I just had to warm up a little bit. We got P. Oh, PI. All right, I'm gonna go to the Kareem one more
All
time.
right.
This is for the G.
You said you were just messing with me before. That was just making me feel good.
Dialing in. The hook. Oh. One more. We're gonna give you one more. You gotta end up. Why don't you just dunk it? Just end on a dunk.
I can't even
one
do
more.
that.
Boom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sue Sweeney.
Thank you.
Sawbones Challenge. Have a great night, guys. Welcome back, everybody, after the Sawbones Challenge. So, again, Sue, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule before Thanksgiving. First and foremost, I want to wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. And thank you again for everything, for coming here, for the years of education that you provided to me over 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
And just your friendship. I really do value that. And just want to thank you.
Yeah. And your kindness is so appreciated. And I think knowing you all these years of like watching you grow through your career and before even being at Mercyhurst and stuff, and like then watching you grow in your career has been, it's very rewarding because you see it in the students and then you're just like, wow, look at everything that they've done. And really, again, kind of in that mom side, like proud of you for
thank you.
like professional, but even like you're being the family man that you are.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, in conclusion, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Retired.
No, you got to give us 50. 50 at Mercyhurst.
Yeah,
You're close.
I give myself like maybe 5 more years. But I do. I want to relax and enjoy life. We have this property that we're on. I said to my husband, I would like a couple horses at some point. I'd like to do some things that I've always wanted to do, but I was raising kids a lot on my own, like for 9-10 years by myself. I want to relax and enjoy life and take advantage of having a good family and hopefully grandkids down the road.
I was going to say grandkids, right?
Yeah. But I do. I want to be able to relax and enjoy life because, like I said, I graduated in Mercyhurst 88, came back in 89, and worked ever since.
Just been on that treadmill.
Yeah. So I think I just would like to get up in the morning and work out and do my thing, but then be able to help out around the community a little bit more. Would be nice to have the time to do that. So.
Do you see yourself staying in the community?
Yeah, like I do. I see we're in Harbor Creek is where we live. And then do a lot like Finley Lake. I'd like to get more involved there to be able to give back there. But I do. I going like maybe to like the art house and doing some tutoring, that type of thing. Just to be there again as a support for some kids that don't always have that at home.
Yeah. Giving back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an important piece, like that idea of being grateful. And that is a lot of times like those little things, like when I try to explain to some people on campus, like some of these kids didn't have a mom or dad that when they came home and said, do you have your homework done? Like there's nobody there at home when they came, you know what I mean? Like
it's sad.
It is. And it's part of their reality of, knowing they've persevered, but like what we can do is kind of be there to be able to sometimes just check up on them and know that somebody cares that they're getting their work done.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Yep. And thank you to the Mercyhurst community. Again, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, if you have any guests you'd like to see, please email us, message us, leave comments on our YouTube channel. But again, stay tuned. We've got our preview for next week's guest coming up. I'm afraid to say that I'm wearing this right now. I may have to wear it again next week.
Yeah, you will.
But it's a little the Catholics versus the heathens. Different era, but still going to be a cool guest. And thanks again for tuning in. Have a great night. Last week's guest, it was Mercyhurst, and I'm actually recording this just after our Mercyhurst guest. So I apologize, Jordan, but I really don't apologize because I bleed green and I bleed blue. And I was messing around, but for those of you in the Erie area, he is kind of this young gun that's came into the Gannon University, and he is now their head men's basketball coach. I remember Jordan when he was literally this tall. I said he looked like Dennis the Menace. He had bleach blonde hair, a little bowl cut. He was, I think, 10, 11 years younger than me. But Jordan Fee, super excited to catch some of his basketball games. He runs a very up-tempo, fast-paced offense. I mean, they're averaging 130, sometimes 140 points a game. So it's going to be a great episode. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you soon.
I have loved some fishing in the outdoors where I'm free. how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. I wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got this pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.